And good morning. Welcome to Spot. Glad to have you. Wonderful, beautiful weather we've been having over the last few days. The rain is pretty much preparing the soil for what's about to come bursting through. And that's all that grass and all those weeds, flowers, plants, everything that we have to prepare ourselves as well to take care of. We have to manicure the lawn. We have to de-weed those areas where our flower beds are, and then those areas where we want to maintain a wondrous look of nature. So I'm looking forward to it somewhat. I need to get out there and put down some material to prevent the sunlight from entering into the grounds area to bring up the weeds, so I can put mulch down on top of it, because this year I like to have a gazebo placed under the trees. I have an area of the yard that has this big humongous tree, and it covers the entire corner, and I keep envisioning this gazebo sitting underneath of it. I mean, and just sitting out there and relaxing, drinking my coffee and smoking a cigar, and just kind of I won't do a whole lot of meditating, because it's it's right by the main drive area here, on the throughway here, so we get a lot of traffic, but needless to say, it's still a place where I can sit out of the sun because it's so shaded. And I'm looking forward to that. And when you talk about looking forward to things as a child, and then the early stages of childhood, and I'm talking about the very early stages of a childhood. A lot of times we don't give enough credence to infancy. We focus so much on making a contribution to the child's development in that stage of just feeding them, changing the diaper, trying to get some sleep because they're up all the time and always in need. First, having to understand that they are in a dependency stage. But not only are they in a dependency stage, they're in a developmental stage that will happen even without our having contact with them. And we often miss that part. We often miss the part that as a human being, we begin to do things without having any contact from anyone or anything. For 9 months inside of the mother's womb, we are doing things. We are learning things. We are experiencing things right in the womb. If you ever look at I don't want to even say one of those sonograms, but if you can ever get someone to, if you go online, and you can probably find a video that shows you what the fetus, what the embryo is doing inside of the mother's womb. It's a miraculous change that happens from the point of the connecting egg and sperm. It's just so much that begins to happen. And that's happening without us. We're a part of the equation simply because the process is taking inside of the womb of a human being. But we miss the true miracle and understanding of human development because of a lack of appreciation, I call it, for what happens when those two things meet. When that egg and that sperm cell meet, the miracle begins, and there's an explosion, and all kind of things begin to connect, to form, to build, to develop this child. To develop this child. So one of the things that we really have to come to understand, first and foremost, is that although our presence, our influence, our involvement is most significant to the development of the child will be developing in spite of that involvement. In spite of that involvement. Period. So when we look at the point of the person being pregnant, getting pregnant, all of those miracles that are taking place without us is just one aspect. Because key elements to this equation of growth and development also have to do with that which resides within the parents and their lineage. These things are very important to understand as well, because everything inside of me, all of my growth and development and conditioning is what I am putting into that cell. Everything of me is in that sperm cell. Everything of the mother is in that egg, because that is our conditions. But also understand that things that came from our parents and their parents and their parents' parents and so on and so forth, all of those things are transferred into that one little cell. That one little cell. Everything about my entire history, my life, is in that one sperm cell. Just think about it. Everything. Every experience I've ever had is inside of that cell. Every infection has the potential to reside within that cell. Everything that I eat is inside of that cell. All of these things are inside of the cell. The way those things that I put in my body affected me are inside of that cell. Everything. And sometimes we lose sight of all of this. And we have to have these things in the forefront of our minds, because when we connect with someone and we do it all in the name of having fun, at the end of the day, when that person is pregnant, this is not a matter of fun. This is a matter of serious business now, because now we're talking about another human being. Another human being. And everything that we have done up to that point is enveloped in that new life. So if we have not gotten our own lives together, we haven't gotten our house in order, if we are still in denial about characteristics of ourselves that are harmful to ourselves and to others, if we are still in a condition of unhealthiness spiritually, physically, mentally. These things are all going to be relayed to the child. To the child. Now here's where this story begins. Because now that all these things that come from the lineage of both parents, to include their own conditions, now that these things have been brought together in matrimony of a sort, now we have created us in a different character, a different, I don't want to say character. Now we have brought to life us, but in a different stage of us, and how that individual has internalized, and when I say internalization in the sense of a newborn, it's different than internalization of that newborn into existence. You understand what I'm saying? When I say internalize, that means that all these things about me and my life and my lineage and the mother and her life and her lineage have now come into this individual's existence, and everything, every chemical makeup of that individual has now, all these things have been thrust together. So now what we have is an image of us. An image of us. That image of us may look like one of us very strongly, may look like the other parent very strongly, may have some resemblance to a grandmother. And again, when you look at these kind of things, you say, well, you look almost like your grandfather. You look almost like your grandmother. Why is that so? Because all those things that continue to be passed along. That continue to be passed along. And you sit there and say, well, you know, you act just like your aunt so-and-so. Y'all are so much alike. Why? Because those things are passed along. So now you have this individual who has a lot of your likenesses. Physically, you can see those things. Those are things that are present before you. When a child acts in a manner that is like one or the other parent, the parent picks it up in some capacity. Sometimes when that characteristic of the behavior of that child is identified by a parent, it is usually a negative characteristic. If the behavior affects that parent. Now you act just like your father. You act just like your father. Well, we've already deemed that that's an individual, so how do you make a comparison to my behavior as being just like that of the other parent? Is it because you didn't like that behavior? So now you have to attach it to something? Then there are also times when there are behavior, there are characteristics that a parent sees that are positive ones. Oh, your father was pretty good with his hands. Your father was artistic. Your father was able to make and build. Your mother had a good singing voice. Your mother was generous like that. Your mother was just like that. Well, are you generous? Are you sometimes a pain in the behind? Are some of your behaviors sometimes not appealing? Yes. So why are you liking that behavior to the other parent? Something you want to ask yourself. Because you feel the need to, at that point, express the fact that you do have an understanding that that child was made by the both of you, and that the characteristics of both of you are in that child. Has that been your moment? That fleeting glimpse that you realize that this is so? But why is it only in that capacity? When you do that, you begin to shape and form the child's self-concept. And they begin to look at the both of you based on the views both of you have given to them about the other parent. About the other parent. So if you act negatively towards me when I display a behavior that you say is like my father's, what does that say about me? That says, first of all, that I'm like my father, and second of all, you don't like that about my father. But if I don't see it as being a problem, but you as the parent sees it as being a problem and continue to chastise me for it, what do I do with that? How do I internalize that? And how do I present that to you? And or to my father? You have to begin to look at some of these things here, because these things are very significant. These things are very significant. And the reason why I titled the show The Parent Trap, unlike the movie, which I love dearly, and I think there were 3 of them made, where the pair of twins was trying to get their parents back together. This one is focused on the behaviors, the characteristics, and the outcomes of what we do as adults and how that impacts the individualism of a sort of the child that we now have. Because the trap is not ours. The trap is what we put our children into when we make the decisions that we do, the irresponsible decisions, oftentimes. And yes, we can in fact, plan. So that's why I say often times. But a lot of times, how many pregnancies are planned? And maybe we can all do the research on that, because mine wasn't planned. Well, it wasn't unplanned. If I was having unprotected sex, it was a planned pregnancy. But somebody look that up for me and send me an email and tell me how many people were successful in how many planned pregnancies there were versus how many unplanned pregnancies, and see how many people really are truthful about that. Because you may say you want a child, and because you get pregnant and have a child, you can say, well, we were planning. Well, anyway, so that's what the title Parent Trap is really about. It's a matter of where we place our children. And we place our children oftentimes in this trap, this web of madness, this web of untruths, this web of unsurety, because we really don't know in many cases, because we haven't taken the time to find that out. You ever wonder why so-called royalty does what it does in terms of who's marrying? I mean, if you look at the most recent marriage with the young lady married to the prince, Prince William, and I hope I got that right, but if I don't, please just don't charge it to my head. But look at why. And even though there's no proof that succession was better with so-called royalty lineage and a commoner of a sort, it's not proven, but there was a reason for it. There was a reason for that thinking, is what I'm trying to get you to understand. There was a reason for that kind of thinking. Because the grooming process is consistent. You have to come from here in order for you to be groomed to maintain that certain social status, that character, because when people see you, they associate you with royalty and no commoner, no peons, no paupers. You're always viewed in this certain social status. And when we go further into the show, one of the things I want to speak to has to do with social environment, because the social environment, social context, socio-cultural context refers to the immediate physical and social setting in which people live or in which something happens or develops. It includes the culture that the individual was educated or lives in, and the people and institutions with whom they interact. See, so we'll be moving from that which we bring into the individual's existence, and then that which we expose the individual to. See, these things are very significant. They're very significant. And these are things that we have to begin to look at, no matter how old your child is. Because this may be a learning experience now for you to see where your child is at and why your child is where they're at, and maybe offer some help, support, and assistance to other family members and those outside of your immediate family, to extended family, to blended family members. Because, you know, it's never too late to learn. This is great information for myself. This is information that I continue to learn, because if I am to be effective as a human service professional, as a person who is the president and founder of a nonprofit family services organization, I need to be doing ongoing research. So when I do these 30-minute commentaries, listen, it's because I'm doing the research, because I've done the research. Not because I think it's a good idea. Not because I think it's hip, fly, and cool. Because this is about saving lives. But there are significant factors that we are missing as parents. See, people who put these governments who put these laws into place, put these restrictions into place, and all these other things that happen in our society, they know what they're doing. They know this information. They use this information in establishing what we have here. These things are used. And they're used against us. They're used against us. And when I say us, I'm talking about humanity as a whole. Those of us American citizens. Citizens in not just America, but abroad. These kind of things are understood by those who govern the land. They understand these kinds of things. They understand the significance of the social context, the socio-cultural context, and social environment. They understand all these things. That's why you have the mayhem that you have in so many of these countries, because they do these things, and the things that they do to impose upon their people, the citizens, benefit other areas. Perfect example, education over incarceration is what we the people want. Obviously, our government seems to want something different. Incarceration over education. Why? Because there's a benefit to it. There's a benefit to it, and it's not the benefit to the citizen. When we look at overall, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but when we look at overall, the government is business. Government is big business. That's all it is. You just have these other faces on it. They're called politicians. But this is about business, masked by a genuine and legitimate concern for its citizens. But we have to look at all of these things, because everything that we're exposing our children to influence them, and we don't know what the outcome is going to be. We just hope and pray that what we give our children sinks in and they take heed to it and become successful, whatever that looks like. Not to us as the parent, but to our children. And that's a whole nother show about how we expect for our children to follow our lead and to be that which we seek them to be, not even understanding truly what we have in front of us and what they desire to be, and why they desire to be what it is they desire to be. And sometimes that doesn't even matter. But when we're talking about individualism, and we talk about dependency, we have to be sure that we're teaching, that we're fostering individualism, that we're fostering dependency with balance. With balance. With balance. Because dependency can grow and metamorphosize into neediness if not put in the proper context in teaching. There's a reason why you depend on me as the parent. But there's also a reason why you need to learn how to do this on your own. And oftentimes we're not given the explanation as to why you need to do this on your own. You're just telling me that I need to do this on my own. Do you really know fully how I'm internalizing what you're saying to me? Because dependency to you may not look the same to the other parent. Both parents are teaching dependency, but as I continue to grow, remember I told you the child, a human being, does its own natural development. So as I'm watching both of you and listening to both of you and getting an understanding of what dependency looks like, you're helping, you're influencing my interpretation of it. You're influencing my interpretation of dependency. You are influencing my interpretation of independent living. So if the parents are living in separate homes, then there's another line of thinking entered into the equation, because when you live separate from one another, now dependency and independency look a lot different. See, they look one way when both parents are together. They look different when parents live apart. They look even more distorted when both parents are not only apart physically, but apart socially. They have no kind of contact with one another. You call when you're on your way, you call when you get outside, I open the door, you come on in, or if you got your key, you come on in. We don't attend events together. We show up separately. Our engagement is separate. We come with partners. Our partners don't intermingle. There's a lot of things that come along with this, and you don't really know how I'm interpreting that. And most of the times we don't even ask. We're too busy in teaching mode when you can't teach if you don't create an environment where the child can ask the question and you can answer the question, and also to direct them to where they can get information from. Because any information you give to your child is filtered through your own biases, and that comes from both parents. Then somebody else gives another view. So we're going to stop here today. But next week we're going to delve more into understanding the social environment, social context, and socio-cultural context, and its impact on the child's development. It was a pleasure and an honor once again to have you at my house, at my spot, at Side Spot. As always, be safe. God bless. Peace.